Welcome everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Daily Creative Challenge here on Adobe Live. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure to stream to you live for the Daily Photography Challenge. That's right. The Creative Challenge is being taken over by the Photography Challenge, which is based on Lightroom and Photoshop. And it's been great doing these challenges. It's been great seeing your work. It's been great just having fun showing you guys more about Lightroom and Photoshop. And again, this is the first time we've done it for both Lightroom and Photoshop. We've done Photoshop challenges many times in the past, compositing, retouching, painting, everything. I've even done a photography one in the past, but this one is more for photographers and workflows, especially for people that are using Lightroom, whether it's Lightroom Classic or Lightroom, the new version that's based or cloud-based. So no matter which one you're using or using both, we try and show techniques of how to do it in both applications where possible. For example, when we did the text challenge, well, that wasn't possible because you can only do text in Photoshop. So that became a Photoshop day. But wherever we can do the challenge in both applications or all three applications, I tend to want to show it to you. So that way, whether you're in Lightroom or whether you're in Photoshop, you know how to do it. And so great to see so many of you here in the chat already. I see some favorites. Hey, Sam Peterson, Lois, Valentine, Anthony, Victoria, Lawrence, Andrea, Ralph, Daniel, Cheryl, and the great folks over at Adobe Live in San Francisco. Gus and Paco are on board as well. Marilyn, Cecilia, Bobby, Mandy, and the list goes on. Great. Glad you guys are here. All right, so if this is your first time you're watching this, we do a quick intro, explain the rules, explain how it works, and if you're watching this on the replay, great. Thanks for watching the replay as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at the way to get started here. I'll go to my desktop where you can see I'm on the web page that you would need to go to. So you would point your browser to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. And that will get you to this page where you can go ahead and sign up. That way you'll be notified of the challenges. You can join the community chat. And you have the ability to Weird. I am frozen, it sounds like. Let's see, let's switch. I have no camera movement. All right, sorry about this, folks. Hang on 1 second. Yep, I'm not moving, but it looks like everything else is moving. Yeah, you can see my pointer. Hang on 1 sec. I'm not sure how to get out of this. Let's see. Switch over to this. The desktop again. I am still frozen. Weird. All right, I don't know how to get my image unstuck without starting over again, and I don't want to do that. Let's see, let me switch this camera one more time. Hang on, folks, just for a second. One second here, folks. See if I can get unstuck. All right, let's just remove me and put me back in. Hang on, folks. Sorry about this. And let's go out of there, add that. All right. Yeah, that camera is just frozen. All right, well, you're gonna, hopefully you guys can still hear me. We might have a no camera day. So that's right. So we're gonna skip the camera part. You guys can hear me. The main thing is that you can see what I'm doing and hear me, and that's all that really matters. You don't need to see my face anyway, right? So let's keep going. All right, so those of you who are, again, new, you can join the challenge here. You can then receive the challenge each day, join the community chat, watch our daily live streams where there's usually a face that moves, but in this case there isn't. Then you can go in and finally share your work. The challenges are unlocked each day, so these are the ones we've done so far. Today's challenge, even though I don't see the unlock for it, let me refresh this page. Maybe it's, there it is, remove an object from the photo. And so that's what we're going to be working on today. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into it. And again, everyone says they can hear me, so that's all that matters. Let's go ahead and dive into the challenge, and I'll fix the camera for tomorrow's stream. So let's go ahead. I'm going to switch over to Lightroom, and I've got Lightroom open with the image that you guys got. So this is the image, and what I mean by distractions or removing objects is anything that takes your attention away from the subject. In other words, the subject is probably the car, I'm guessing. But all this stuff on the ground is like some concrete, dirt, papers, just litter. There's a bag or something over there. There's just stuff that makes people look and say, what's that? What's that? Oh, what's that over there? Anything that's making you say, what's that? And it's not the subject is a distraction. That's something we're going to remove. Now, I'm going to just show you in case we don't get a chance to finish it all, but here's the final version of that where there's no distractions. Your eye just keeps going right to the subject. So that would be the goal, is to clean all this up, make it, we know it's not really that clean in real life, unless this were a brand new parking lot. But that's the goal, is to make it look so clean that you have the ability to just go right to the subject without being distracted by something that you shouldn't be distracted by. So how would you do this? Well, in a Lightroom, you would go in and, hang on for 1 second here. All right. Okay, yep. In Lightroom, you could remove certain things, but when it starts to become so much work, you probably don't want to waste your time in Lightroom doing it. You probably want to do it in other more effective ways. So what I mean by that is, if all I wanted to do was just remove a few little spots here and there, piece of cake in Lightroom. But when I start needing to remove giant things and basically repave the parking space, that's a job for Photoshop. So let me show you the difference. In Lightroom, whether it's Lightroom Classic or it is Lightroom Cloud version, I have this spot removal tool. In Lightroom Cloud version, it's called a healing brush. In Lightroom Classic, it is called its original name in the develop module, the spot removal tool. The spot removal tool was originally designed way back when, a decade ago, for removing spots. That's what it was for removing a spot that may have been sensor dust or some kind of water spot on the image. And you could even do it in batch. You could remove a bunch of water spots that are appeared in the same spot on every single image. That's what that tool was originally designed for. Then the engineers actually enhanced it so it could be used like a brush. So you could actually, instead of just clicking spots or clicking circles, you could actually brush with it and remove spots that way. So if I'm in Classic and I grab that tool, which I just did, and I come over to my image and I do that, well, look at what it does. It removes that spot by grabbing another spot nearby, and it randomly does that. Now, the healing brush in Photoshop actually uses the surrounding pixels. It doesn't randomly go grab another spot in the image, it just uses the pixels that are nearby. But the way the healing brush has always worked is it's always done this. Now, the first spot is the one that I removed. The second one is where it got it from. So I could pick that up and actually move it around. I could say, use the line to do it. Use the wheel to do it. Use the headlight to do it. I could do whatever I want for picking where it's going to pick up that spot from. You also have two modes for this tool. You have clone and heal. And depending on what you're trying to do, like if I'm trying to make an exact match of something, then I probably want to use clone. If I'm trying to blend it in, then I probably want to use heal. But you can switch those to whatever works best for your subject. So again, I could just go through, start removing spots like this, and that works pretty effectively for little things. And I would keep going and just keep doing that. But again, those bigger things like this whole giant splash of dust over here, this giant one here, the bag over there next to the pole in the background, that's where it starts to get a lot harder to do that. So with that said, yeah, it's probably a job for Photoshop. So I'm going to reset this. I'm going to reset it back to the way it was and go to where we would normally go. So first of all, lens corrections, enable profile correction. Second of all, we go to our basic panel and we get out of the spot healing tool and we would do an auto to kind of auto adjust this. All right, great. And I might pull up the shadows a bit. And that made it a little too bright for my taste. I'm going to pull it back down a bit and maybe make the blacks a little blacker because that is a black car. All right, there we go. And then pull the highlights down just a bit. Okay, so, and we don't really need both of those right now. Okay, so now I got the image prepared to go to Photoshop, meaning I've done what I'm going to do in Lightroom. Once again, we right click or Command E, Control E. That will take us over to Photoshop with, in this case, since I'm working with a raw file, it'll take a copy. If you imported this image in the Lightroom Classic and you hadn't made a copy yet, as a JPEG, it will ask you what you want to do. So now I'm in Photoshop. And I know a lot of people like to duplicate the layer first. I don't usually do that when I'm coming from Lightroom because I already have a duplicate in Lightroom. I already have the original. But just so you can see the before and after, I've made a copy in this one case. And again, we have a bunch of tools. So the first tool is the real healing brush, as I like to call it. So the real healing brush does not just go grab a spot. It allows me to just quickly paint out all of this debris, all of this dust, by going in and just brushing it out. Now I could make the brush bigger using my bracket keys on the keyboard, and I can get a bigger spot at one time. And look at that, look how clean it makes that. It makes that just disappear just so easily using the surrounding pixels. I can see a line here, might want to remove that. See a line here, I might want to remove that. And again, anything that's going to be a distraction. So I can just paint all of that out. I can even paint all of this out until it removes all of that. So much easier and faster doing this in Photoshop than in Lightroom. Now, if you're trying to remove something that's a little bit bigger and you don't want to brush like a giant area, you could use the patch tool instead. So the patch tool is basically making a selection. You could use any tool to make the selection, but then you're going to use the patch tool to actually try and patch. So I can then pick up that area and tell it to use this area instead. So it will blend in that area, same thing here, pick up that whole area, use that area instead. So I can kind of just use that one good part of asphalt and use that to clean up all the other areas of asphalt very easily, very quickly. All right, so now that got rid of most of the obvious ones, I can zoom in over here, see what's going on over here. So I can see over here, this is like a parking stump, but this is a bag, and that's a little piece of debris, and there's some debris up there as well. So once again, and we probably want to go back to the healing brush and make our brush smaller. And we'll do that, do that, do that, do that, do that. Just really clean that up. And even the spots that aren't debris that you might want to clean up on the actual wall just to make it cleaner while you're at it, you can do that as well. And if it's being stubborn with the healing brush, meaning it's not really going away, then you know it's a job for the patch tool. So grab our patch tool. Now, some might argue and say, hey, what about the clone stamp tool? Clone stamp tool is an old favorite as well. I use the clone stamp tool a lot of times as well, but if I can get it done with patch or healing brush, I'll get it done with patch or healing brush. I'll save the clone stamp as a last resort, meaning I'm not satisfied with the results that I'm getting from the healing brush and the patch tool, and therefore I'll use the healing brush, or I'll use the clone stamp instead. Now, you notice I saved the biggest problem for last. I saved that bag for last, because the reason I say it's the biggest problem is because, I don't know what's going on here, because it covers part of the line. So there's a line. If I were to just patch that bag out, it may not patch it smoothly enough to replace the line. So in this case, how would I do that? In other words, if I tried to use the healing brush, it might not do a good job. This is where the patch tool really comes in handy, because I can make a giant selection around the whole thing, just the whole bag. And the beauty of the patch tool, and this is why I fell in love with it day one, is that it gives you a preview. It gives you a preview of what you're about to do. So as I move it down to the other line, I can use that one as the source. So that way I get a nice preview of what it's going to look like, so I can patch that line out. Now, of course, it left the same gap in both places here. And well, if I don't want it to really look like I repeated it, then I'll just use the patch tool again to patch out that one little line there. Just make a selection with the patch tool, and there we go. Get rid of those distractions. Now, if we zoom out, you have a nice, clean charging area for this electric car with no giant distractions that people are going to be asking, what's that? What's that piece of paper there? What's that for? So forth and so on. All right, so now if you want to kick it up a notch while we're here, the next thing you might want to say is, well, is it level? In other words, that car looks like the whole image looks like it's leaning a little to the left. You can also tell by the columns themselves, they're also leaning a little bit to the left. Now, that doesn't bother me a ton, but if it bothered you, you might want to straighten the image. Now, again, you can straighten it in Lightroom, you can straighten it in Photoshop, you use geometry, you could use a bunch of ways to do it. I might try the crop tool first. So I'll just hit the letter C to go to the crop tool, turn off my aspect ratio, and just clear it. There we go. Escape out, and then go to the crop tool one more time. There we go. And then I can just try tilting to see what I'm going to get. So I can just tilt it up a little. So therefore, I'm going to now have to either crop into it or use content aware to fill in that extra space. So I could try content aware first. I don't know how it's going to do on the columns at the top there in the upper right corner, but I can certainly try it. And let's see if content aware will fill in that space for me that the white space would have left that I would have had to crop into. Not too shabby, not bad. So now the car is a little straighter, and that's a better straightening than I would have gotten in Lightroom, because Lightroom can't add more pixels. It can't add more to the columns and to the space there, straighten it up. Now the columns look nice and straight. The car looks straighter. The distractions are gone, except for one little distraction over there. A little red dot on the tire there. Because my eye went to it. So if my eye's going to it, that's a distraction. Because I'm like, what is that dot? So ask yourself, does your eye go to something that it shouldn't be going to? And if so, does it need to be there? So this is not something someone left here. This belongs here. But again, my eye went to it as to say, what is this? And so the question becomes, does it need to be here? And if the answer is no, then take it out. It serves no purpose in the photo. It doesn't add to the story whatsoever. So there we go. All right. Now that I've done that, here's our before, just to show you look how far we came. That's where we started. So that's why I made the duplicate layer. Here's our after, before and after. All that trash, all that dust, all that dirt and grime, making the distractions more plain. All right, so now let's go ahead and save this. It'll save it with the layers. And since we're in Photoshop, if we wanted to do that export, we can go ahead and talk about exporting now. We can export that out using the export as JPEG, Or we could use the Save for Web, which is the one I'm still using most of the time. And again, at least 1080 pixels on the longest edge for Instagram or anywhere else that you might want to post this. And you can make it bigger, but I at least do 1080 as a minimum. And then we'll go ahead and save that out. You can name it whatever you want. So this would be Tesla Model 3. No distractions. All right, we'll save that out to the desktop. And once I close it, it'll do one more save because it saves my export settings. Once I close it and head back to Lightroom Classic, it puts it right next to the original. So here's the original, the one we started with. Here's the one we just fixed in Photoshop. Here's the original that I had fixed in Photoshop without tilting. So here's the original. Here's what we just did in just a few minutes. And now if I were going back here and I wanted to do the export, I would go to my file menu, choose export with preset because I made one called for DCC. If you hadn't made one yet, you'd go to export and then you would choose your settings. So you would tell it where to put it. JPEG, sRGB for the web, Adobe RGB for print, quality 100 because I do want it to be high quality to share. Resize it because I don't need the full resolution, at least 1080 if not larger. Only export to copyright and contact info. They don't need all the info in the image about the car and the location and all that. Don't need a watermark, and then show it to me when you're done. So that will export it out quickly, show it to me in the operating system, and there it is ready to post. All right. And of course, one last one, since we're still talking about exporting. If we wanted to export it one more time from Lightroom Cloud, that would be the new share menu. And you have a full-blown export now in the newest version. And you can do this here. JPEG, at least 1080, 100% quality. Copyright only. And color space sRGB. Export it out where you want it. And call it whatever you want it. And there you go. So now we've done 3 exports ready for posting on Discord. So for those of you who are, there's my frozen image. For those of you who are new, head over to Discord using this bit.ly. That's where we're posting things, as well as using the hashtag for, oh, well, don't know what happened there. Hang on. No, not the frozen image of me on the green screen. Let's turn that off. There we go. Or head over to Behance and make sure you share it with the hashtag PS Daily Challenge. So they're showing up here. I'm adding my favorites to my mood board, but you guys have been doing a great job with the challenges thus far, and that's where it all happens. All right. So you would be seeing my smiling face right now, and I would be prepared to tell you thank you. But, oh, before we do that, real quick, since I have a few seconds left, let's head over to, let's head back to Discord, actually. And let's look at some of the entries you guys have done thus far. So I'm going to scroll up a little bit. So a lot of you have really done some great jobs on the challenges. I love the fact that you're using your own images. Here's one for adding text. That was one of the challenges we did this week. Let's see. Another one for adding text. Iceland shot. That's my shot there. Nice one using curves and color adjustments. So you guys are doing fantastic. Oh, nice perspective on the text there. Very cool. Okay, I've done saw those yesterday. And so just keep up the work with what you're doing in terms of your exports, and I'm liking them as fast as I can here on Discord. So with that said, everybody, cheers. I want to thank you for joining me here. Tomorrow I will have a working camera. I'm not sure what happened today, but we will unstick it so that it can work for tomorrow. And with that said, thanks everybody, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Bye everybody, have a good one. Cheers.